on a completely different note now. The Extraordinary Southern Africa Development Community, that's SADC, their heads of state and government, that summit, I beg your pardon, currently underway in Harare in Zimbabwe. The gathering discussed key regional issues, including recent elections in Mozambique, Botswana, and the upcoming polls in Namibia. Let's unpack what came out of it. Bring in Dr. Sizo Nkala, who's a research fellow with UJ Center for Africa-China Studies and joins us via our video link. Doc, great to have you on the SABC News Channel. Thank you so much indeed for making time. From what you've been able to hear about this gathering, has there been any substantial outcome that convinces you that the violence, at the very least in Mozambique, will be prevented from ongoing or will stop, put simply?
Good morning and good morning to your viewers. I think there were two important outcomes in the summit that was just concluded in Zimbabwe. The first one is the extension of the SADC mission in the DRC as mandate. Remember, it was supposed to last up until the 15th of December this year. So it has been extended by another year. I think that was the major item on the agenda of this summit. So in terms of the unfolding situation in Mozambique, I think it was a disappointing outcome. There was an outcome, but it was disappointing in the sense that it's a typical SADC outcome of expressing solidarity with the SADC member state at the expense of democracy and integrity of the electoral processes in the member states. So on the one hand, so it was quite awkward because on the one hand, the summit congratulated Frelimo, the ruling party, were declared by the winner by the Mozambican Electoral Commission. On the other hand, they noted that the electoral process in Mozambique was inconclusive because there are processes that are taking place right now in the Mozambican Constitutional Council, which is the highest court in Mozambique, which is currently considering complaints from the opposition parties about the electoral processes. So it's inconclusive. The election there is a possibility, however minimal, that it could be nullified. So it can only be conclusive after we get the verdict from the Constitutional Council of Mozambique.
And where do you reckon that leaves Summit as this multilateral body? I mean, in the past, they had always been criticized as an institution for not really being able to make headway in places where it matters. I mean, you say that doublespeak was awkward. Others will say it's downright contradictory. How do you congratulate an organization on the one hand, but on the other, concede to very serious irregularities or at least discrepancies in the electoral process?
I think it points to a very serious, I think, structural deficiency within the SADC organizational framework. I think it points to, I think, inconsistency of values, of common values within the SADC organization itself. Because within that fold, there are countries that are authoritarian and there are countries that are democratic. So there's that divide in terms of common values. There are no common values held by the SADC member states. So it becomes very difficult to deal with situations like the one that we see in Mozambique. And then also, I think it also points to the principle, the problematic principle of sovereignty. Because as much as we would like, SADC cannot intervene in Mozambique. It cannot tell Mozambique what to do. They can only recommend. So the SADC election observer mission that went to Mozambique, they released a preliminary report soon after the elections. The report was, I think, it was overwhelmingly positive, although there were, I think, recommendations that they made of the process of the electoral process in Mozambique. It was overwhelmingly positive, and this laid the ground for SADC, the extraordinary summit in Zimbabwe, to effectively endorse the Mozambican elections.
Yeah, it shouldn't be lost to us, of course, that it was held in a country whose government itself has faced very serious allegations of irregularities, to put mildly. And I wonder to what extent you reckon that contributed to the awkwardness you speak about.
Yeah, the whole integrity of the summit, I think it was put into disarray by the chairman of the SADC himself, President Emerson Mnangagwa of Zimbabwe, who congratulated, who issued premature congratulatory messages to Frelimo even before the Mozambican Election Commission announced the results. So that was premature, I think, and it didn't help the case at all. And Zimbabwe has always been in the center of these disputes, electoral disputes. It's a country that has failed to produce fair, credible, and free elections itself. So for it to oversee elections in other countries, I think it's quite a non-starter. So yeah, I think it damages the prospects of peace and stability in the region, because the young people in Mozambique came out to participate peacefully in an electoral process, but there have been allegations that they were disenfranchised and they are not being listened to. I mean, if you look at the summit, it was just governments there. It was just the state. There were no opposition parties invited. There were no civil society organizations invited. So the SADC summit took the word of the Mozambican president, Filipe Nyusi, on what is going on in Mozambique. And I mean, he's obviously, I mean, his vision would obviously be biased, because he belongs to the to Frelimo, who is one of the stakeholders in the current conflict in Mozambique. Absolutely,
and I suppose that will give a lot more credence to the perception that, you know, SADC is only but a boys' club where they come together, affirm each other, and do very little of holding one another accountable for sometimes what is glaring for the international community, if not for the people who these governments claim to represent.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. I think these organizations, regional organizations like SADC and the continental one like the African Union, I think they are due for reforms, because in their current state they are not. I don't think they are fit for purpose, because I mean they're mostly state-centered. Even though you have a SADC parliamentary forum, it's just really a talking shop that doesn't make any substantive contributions to the running of SADC. So it's an undemocratic organization. It's mostly state-centered, top-down organization. That's not responsive to the demands of the citizens of SADC region. So I think there has to be some reforms that would see maybe the incorporation of grassroots organizations having a voice in the running of SADC, and also contributing to the decisions of the regional body.
Sure, very sobering assessment, and one has to wonder how much money is spent on all these summits, given how ineffective it seems they are. But Dr. Nkala, before we round off our discussion, you initially, or at least as part of our discussion, spoke about the young people in Mozambique who came out to vote, presumably hoping that the outcome would improve their own material conditions. I wonder where you reckon this leaves them, and more broadly, that country, because deploying a mission there from SADC doesn't seem to me as the more long-term solution to the instability there. Well, it leaves the region in a dilemma, really, because, I mean, if you look at the mission that was deployed in Mozambique in 2021, I think it concluded sometime last year in July. It was because of the instability, particularly the insurgency in the northern regions of Mozambique, and
And the difficulties that young people face, their struggles of unemployment, of failing to make a living in their own countries, it makes them prone to be recruited by these terrorist outfits in Mozambique, which makes regional stability and peace, I think, difficult to achieve, because you are excluding or disenfranchising young people who want to participate in the political processes and hold their leaders accountable and change their leaderships through peaceful elections. But then if the elections are rigged, if the integrity of the elections is in doubt, I think this will drive young people to join these terrorist organizations and further exacerbate the instability that we're already struggling with. And it becomes expensive for SADC to react to the instabilities like terrorist insurgency. It's an expensive venture. I understand that the SADC mission in Mozambique was cut short because of the shortage of funds. And even the SADC mission in the DRC, it's facing a chronic shortage of resources. It hasn't been fully deployed. That's why the M23 rebels in Mozambique are still terrorizing the citizens in the eastern region of the DRC. So I think it's better for SADC to kind of, I think, take care of the political processes, make sure the political and democratic processes are strengthened within the SADC region, as it will, I think, prevent instability and violence and conflict.
Sure, it's a fair point that you make. Dr. Sizo Nkala, thanks very much indeed for sharing your insights. Really do appreciate it. Dr. Nkala is a research fellow with the University of Johannesburg Center for Africa-China Studies. Once again, thanks very much indeed.